Good morning, everybody. My name's Gary Stromberg. I know I don't look like one, but I'm an alcoholic. And just wanted to see if we had any compatriots in the room. I'm very honored to be here, very happy to be here with you this morning. And it was very enjoyable in listening to all of you during that round table. I was going to do the same thing, actually. This is National Recovery Month. And the purpose of which is to put a face on recovery. I'm involved in an organization in Washington, D.C. called Faces and Voices of Recovery. It's an organization that was formed a few years ago with a great deal of national funding, the purpose of which is to have people come forward and talk about alcoholism. Alcoholism, I'm not going to dwell on the serious side of this. I'd like to get into more anecdotal stuff and share with you some what I think are heartwarming stories of recovery. But there is a serious side of this, and that being that alcoholism affects so many people in this country today. I mean, I'm not going to go into numbers, but it was interesting in these roundtables to see that everyone here in some way is impacted by alcoholism and addiction. It has the tentacles of this disease stretch in every nook and cranny of our society, you know. And if you're not an alcoholic, you have a child that's an alcoholic, or you have a friend that's an alcoholic, or a drug addict, or something. And our lives are all seem to be impacted by the disease of addiction. And what we're doing now is we're coming forward and saying, yes, that's true. Addiction does impact great many of us, but there is such a thing as recovery. Look at me. I'm a man who destroyed his life because of alcohol and drugs. I went right down the drain because of my addiction, but I've been sober for 28 years. I have a life, I have a family, I have recovery, and I'm a contributing member of our society today. And that's, you know, and that's, I'm not saying it for applause, thank you though, but what I'm saying is that we need to put a face on recovery to say that there are people like me who have, because of the addiction and because of the disease of alcoholism, have found a way into recovery and reclaimed our lives, and we are useful citizens today. I do not have to hide in shame my alcoholism. Alcoholism has been declared by the American Medical Association a standalone disease. I thought when I first got sober there was something wrong with me. I was a bad person. I was a morally weak person. I thought all these negative things about myself. What I have learned in 28 years of recovery is that I'm a sick person. I have a disease. I have a disease of alcoholism. It's not my fault. And what I have found in these 28 years is a way to live in recovery where I don't have to drink and I don't have to use drugs, and I can be a contributing member of my society and use my experience and my background to my advantage. What was my greatest defects have now become my greatest assets because I'm able to stand in front of people like you and share my experience. And hopefully there'll be somebody out there that has got the secret of alcoholism or got the shame of alcoholism and really doesn't know what to do about it, can find their way into recovery. So, okay, enough for the serious side of it. Again, like I said, this is National Recovery Month, and so many of us who are in recovery take whatever opportunities we can to go out and share and say, look at us, we're healthy, recovering people, and we're alcoholics. So a little bit about my story. I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up here in a very normal, modest family. My parents were both working people. We didn't have a lot of money, but there was a lot of love in my household. There wasn't a lot of alcohol in my house. I don't know what drove me towards that first drink, but it was what I hear in my Alcoholics Anonymous meetings over and over again is, and as Kevin described it, alcoholics have this thing, and I guess it's true of all addictions, but there's a hole in the center of me that always said I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't handsome enough. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't enough. There was something missing inside of me. And for some reason, that first time I drank, that became the potion that made me okay. It made Gary stronger. It made Gary more handsome, It made Gary smarter. It made girls like me. It did all the things that I couldn't do for myself. Alcohol seemed to do for me. And so I followed this course. You know, I thought I found the magic potion, and alcohol was my greatest friend until it wasn't. It took a long time for that to happen, and I had a lot of adventures along the way and a lot of good times as a result of drinking. And there's also lots of drugs in my story. That's usually the case with alcoholics. But they worked for a long time until they stopped working. As I said, I grew up in Los Angeles. I wasn't a very good student. My story is about being a big shot. I always wanted to be a big shot. That's what I thought I was supposed to be. The message I got in my house was that my mother thought I was going to be, I was the next coming, that I was smarter than you, that I was destined for greatness. And that message really felt good to me as a kid growing up in this house, until I ventured out into the world and got to compare myself with the rest of you. And what I decided was that I didn't measure up. My mother was not telling me the truth. I wasn't as smart as you were, and I wasn't as handsome as most of the guys that I knew, and I wasn't as athletic as I wanted to be. I wasn't. So somehow that message got me very confused, and I thought that I was going to be a great disappointment to my mother. And what I learned to do at a very early age was to act out negatively. If positive attention wasn't to be my story, negative attention was going to work just fine, thank you. So I ended up becoming the class clown. I did all these things to get negative attention, which was very easy to do and seemed to work. It seemed to pay off for me in the same way that positive attention did for my fellow students. And so my mother was routinely invited to the school to take me home and explain my behavior. And I always seemed to be in trouble. I graduated high school I don't know, they didn't rate anybody at that time. There weren't a number system, but I'm sure I was down at the bottom of the list. And this was the first great disappointment in my life, was that I recognized when I graduated high school that I wasn't college material. Everybody that I knew was off to some college, and I was left alone with nothing to do. And I made a decision for myself at that point that started me off on this road towards, which ultimately led to self-destruction. But I joined the U.S. Army. It was a great mistake for me. I was a young, inexperienced, immature boy who had no idea what he was getting into. I went there because I really needed a place to go. And when I got to the Army, it just exacerbated all these bad feelings I had about myself. This Army was just unforgiving and not a very welcoming place for this 17-year-old immature kid. But the one thing that I found that I had already discovered in high school was that alcohol did it. Alcohol was my liquid courage. Alcohol was my liquid escape. I could just shut down completely from the horrifying experiences of being in the military. I just wasn't geared towards the life that I chose for myself. These were tough, ornery guys who were very set in their ways, and I was kind of a jokester, liked to make fun of things, and there was no place in the Army for somebody like me. I got in a lot of trouble in the Army, but the one thing I did, I found guys who liked to drink, and so that became kind of the routine. Every opportunity that I got, we would sneak off somewhere and drink, and I stayed drunk for 6 months of active duty. I was in the reserve. I was in what they called what did they call us? We were clerk typists in the Army. We were called what was the name that we gave ourselves? The Remington Raiders. That's what we were. Remington typewriters, remember? We were the Remington Raiders. The company motto was, "We never retreat, just backspace." So after my 6 months serving my country, I was set loose, and now I was 18 years old on my own. I ended up back home in Los Angeles, and I migrated to the Sunset Strip, and this is where my career, a lot of what my career is about has been being at the right place at the right time. academics weren't weren't what I was about. I wanted to have fun. And so the Sunset Strip in 1960, wow, I'm dating myself, 60, was all about having fun. And I latched on to a group of people like me who just wanted to have a party. At the time at the Sunset Strip in the 1960s, music, it was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll was just beginning as it's defined by most of us. It started really pretty much on the Sunset Strip, and I was there, and I used to hang out in clubs and drink and party, and I got very much involved in music. I loved music, and there were lots of music groups happening at that time, and so from one lucky event to the next, I ended up starting this little company that did PR for rock groups. The only thing that I have that I've recognized all along that I was good at was the gift of gab. I could talk. I could talk my way into trouble, and I could talk my way out of trouble. And talking is really what public relations was about, at least at that time. And there was nobody doing what I ended up doing, which was to do public relations for these young aspiring rock groups. Well, I fell into just this amazing career. My first clients were the Doors, and I have a Doors fan here. Three Dog Night and Steppenwolf. Those were my first three groups, and these were young guys who were just aspiring to, they just lived the same kind of life I did. They wanted to have fun, they wanted to have a party. They had no idea that this was going to turn into anything of significance, but this is what they did. They played music. And I just loved hanging out with these guys, and so I found a way of not only hanging out with them, but of making a career out of this. I started this little PR firm, and I started representing these three groups, and then just one thing led to another. I had this little office on Sunset Strip, and the one thing that we had in my office were alcohol and drugs. And if you wanted to come and do business at my place, you could get high and you could get drunk and you could have a party there. And that really became I wasn't very competent at the business side of things, but I sure was competent at providing an atmosphere for you to have some fun. So, and word just got around, and one group after another started coming to my door, knocking on my door, wanting me to represent them. I had no idea what I was doing. I put together a staff of people who were just like me, who wanted to have fun, and my office was just an amazing place. We had no desks. We just had couches and coffee tables and refrigerators. I had a couch with a big coffee table and a big crystal bowl that was always filled day after day with cocaine. My secretary, that's her job, was to come in the morning and fill that bowl up with cocaine. And the rule in my office was if you were doing business there, you could have as much as you wanted, but there was nothing to go. You had to do it while you were there. And as a consequence, I had a lot of people that would spend time in my office. So, and I really don't know how this thing grew and grew, but it did. And Kevin read you the list of people that I represented, and it was all true. I mean, the Rolling Stones came to my office one day, and they said, we heard about you. Would you be interested in representing us? And of course I'd be interested in representing you. And so I virtually represented at one point everybody, the who's who of rock and roll. And my life was about gallivanting around the world with these rock groups, doing their publicity, which meant just fielding calls from the media. I really didn't do very much to promote anybody. I just answered the phones and set up interviews and arranged for photo sessions and stuff like that. Not having a clue what I was doing, making a lot of money, and this was an endless party. And one of the characteristics of who I am is no planning for anything in the future. Today's the party, and I don't even know what tomorrow's going to bring, but today I'm having fun, so I'm going for it. And this is really how I built this business. It just kept going day after day after day after day, and it went on for about 7 or 8 years. I suffer from another affliction that I've come to understand in my recovery, and that's the Peter Principle. You know what that is? I succeeded to my level of incompetence. I love that concept, by the way, but that so aptly describes who I am. And so what I did was I built this monstrous company that I had no idea how to run or control, and it just consumed me.